My name is William Carter. I'm 82 years old. And today, I signed the paper that erased me from my daughter's life. No police, no court order, just a pen, a table, and a man who already knew I was going to say yes. They didn't call it a down. They called it a medical guardianship transfer. Clean words, careful words, words designed to hide what this really was. Across from me, Daniel Reynolds, still, composed, watching me the way surgeons watch a monitor, waiting for the exact moment something stops. "You understand the terms," he said. No emotion, no pressure, because he didn't need either. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I had already done the math. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. Light, careful, like someone who didn't want to be part of this. Emily, 12 years old enough to hear everything. Dad. That word, in that room, felt like a mistake. I didn't turn around. If I did, this would fall apart. Are you giving me away? There are questions you don't answer, not because you don't know how, but because the truth would make it impossible to finish what you started. So, I stayed silent, and I signed. William Carter, my name, the last thing I would ever give her. You sold me. I didn't turn around, because if I did, I wouldn't leave. And if I didn't leave, she wouldn't live. The room stayed quiet. No one stopped me, because everyone there already understood what this really was. Daniel stood first, smooth, controlled, like this had always been how it would end. "Everything will be handled," he said. I nodded. Not because I trusted him, but because I had already made sure he didn't need to be trusted. I stood up, slowly. 82 years old, and somehow this was the heaviest thing I had ever carried. I walked past her. I could feel her eyes, burning, confused, breaking. But I didn't stop, because if she hated me, she would survive me. And that was the only thing that mattered. I reached the door. My hand rested on the handle. For a moment, just one, I almost turned back. But I didn't. Because this wasn't the day I lost my daughter. This was the day I made sure she wouldn't lose her life. And no one, not her, not them, not anyone, was ever supposed to know why. There was a time people trusted my hands, not politely, not casually, completely. William Carter, MD Cardiothoracic Surgery. For 37 years, I made decisions that gave people more time. Not hope, not comfort, time. In my world, that was the only thing that ever really mattered. A heart either kept beating or it didn't. There were no opinions, no debates, just outcomes. Until the day it stopped being that simple. His name was Richard Hale, 56, construction foreman, a man who had spent his life building things for other people and suddenly couldn't even hold his own breath. Aortic rupture. By the time he arrived, his vitals were collapsing. We didn't have ideal conditions. We didn't have time. There's always a protocol, steps, approvals, a sequence designed to protect everyone involved. But protocols assume something. That time will wait for you. That day, it didn't. I remember the monitor. Numbers dropping faster than they should. And I made a decision. Not the approved one. Not the safe one. The right one. We skipped steps. Bypassed clearance that would have taken 10 minutes. 10 minutes he didn't have. So I opened his chest and I fixed what was breaking. The bleeding stopped. The rhythm returned. For a moment, everything was quiet again. The kind of quiet that tells you you did something right. He survived the surgery. That should have been enough. It wasn't. Complications came 12 hours later. Internal bleeding, organ stress, a cascade we couldn't fully stop. By morning, he was gone. And just like that, everything I did to save him became the reason I was blamed for losing him. The board didn't care that he would have died on the table. They cared that I didn't follow the sequence, that I didn't ask permission, that I acted alone. Deviation from protocol. That was the phrase they used. Clean, neutral, almost harmless. Until you understand what it really means. It means you stepped outside the system, and the system doesn't forgive that. The lawsuit came next. Then the media, questions, doubt, silence from people who used to stand by me as I thought. Patients canceled. Colleagues disappeared. Not because they understood, but because they understood what it looked like. And perception is everything. The hearing lasted less than an hour. They reviewed the case, asked questions they already knew the answers to. Then they thanked me for my years of service and took my license. Just like that. No more operating room. No more patients. No more decisions that mattered. I went home that night, stood in front of the my shirt. But something was missing. I reached up and removed my name badge. William Carter, M. Dot. For decades, those letters meant I could help people. Now, they meant nothing. I placed it on the counter. For the first time in 37 years, I didn't know what my hands were for. People think losing a career is about money. It isn't. It's about identity. It's about waking up and realizing the thing that made you matter no longer exists. And the worst part, I would make the same decision again, because in that room, with his life slipping away, I wasn't thinking about protocol. I was thinking about time. How little he had. Much 10 minutes could cost. I didn't know it then. But that lesson would come back to me. Years later, at a different table, holding a different pen, deciding how much time my daughter had left. The first time they said the word, they said it gently, like softening it would change what it meant. Your daughter has a rare genetic condition. I remember nodding, not because I understood, but because I needed them to keep talking. Doctors don't like silence. Silence means you've run out of options. So they kept explaining. Terms, long ones, precise ones, the kind that sound important, until you realize they all mean the same thing. Something is wrong, and we don't know how to fix it. Emily sat beside me, too quiet. Children are supposed to ask questions, interrupt, be afraid out loud. She didn't. She just watched me, waiting, because in her world, I was still the one who had answers. Is it serious? She asked. The doctor hesitated. That's how you know it is. It's treatable, he said. Treatable, not curable. I'd used that word myself for years. It means we can buy time, not save you, just delay the end. What does she need? I asked. There is a therapy, he said. Gene-based, still in trial. Experimental. The word stayed longer than it should have. It has shown promising results. Promising. Another word we use when certainty isn't available. How much time do we have? This time, he didn't hesitate. Without treatment? A few months? A few. Not years. Not even one. Just enough time to understand what you're about to lose. And with treatment, if she responds well, she could live a normal life. Could. Everything was a possibility. Nothing was guaranteed. That was the deal. How do we start? I asked. The doctor exhaled slowly. And for the first time, I saw it. Not hesitation, not doubt, constraint. "We'll need approval," he said, "from insurance." Of course, in America, before you can be treated, you have to be approved. The call came 2 days later. Not from the doctor, from a representative. Her voice was polite, practiced, distant. "Mr. Carter, we've reviewed the case." And then, the word that decides everything. "Unfortunately." They always say it like that, as if regret changes the outcome. The requested treatment is considered experimental and not medically necessary under your current plan. Not necessary. I looked through the glass. Emily was drawing a horse with a door and 2 people standing in front of it. "Is there an appeal process?" I asked. "There is. But it may take several weeks." Weeks. Time we didn't have. "And out of pocket?" A pause. Longer this time. "The estimated cost is approximately $3 million. There it was. A number. Clean. Simple. Possible. I didn't argue. Didn't raise my voice. Because I already knew. The system doesn't say no. It just tells you how much yes costs. I went back into the room. Emily looked up. "Are we going home soon?" I smiled. The kind of smile people use right before they lie. "Yeah," I said. "Soon." She nodded, satisfied, because she still believed I could fix things. That night, I sat alone in the hospital hallway. Fluorescent lights, too bright to hide anything. I looked at my hands. Still steady, still capable. But for the first time in my life, there was nothing they could do. No incision, no procedure, no protocol to break. Just a number. $3 million. Clock that wouldn't slow down. That was the moment I understood something. Years ago, I broke the rules to buy a man 10 minutes. Now, I needed to find a way to buy my daughter a lifetime. And this time, there were no rules left to break. The first time I heard their name, it wasn't from them. It was from a nurse. Casual, almost accidental. "There's a family asking about her case." I looked up. "What family?" She hesitated. "Private donors, I think." "They've been in contact with administration," Private donors. That's what people call it. When money moves quietly. Why? I asked. Another pause. They're interested in helping. Helping? That word again. It always sounds generous. Until you find out what it costs. I didn't respond. Because by then, I had already learned something. No one offers help like that without knowing more than they should. 2 days later, I was sitting in their office. Not a hospital, not a clinic, an office. Glass walls, clean lines, controlled. Daniel Reynolds stood when I entered. Polite, confident, predictable. The kind of man who doesn't ask questions he doesn't already know the answers to. You came, he said. I didn't answer. I sat down. Because whatever this was, it wasn't a conversation. It was a negotiation. His wife sat across from me, still, observing, not emotional. That mattered. Daniel slid a folder across the table. I didn't open it. Not yet. You already know what this is, he said. I looked at him. No, I said. But I know what it isn't. That made him smile. Just slightly. Fair enough. He leaned forward. Your daughter qualifies for a treatment very few people can access. I know. And you know why. I didn't answer. Because I did. Money. Always money. We can fund it, he said. No hesitation. No build-up. Like he was offering to solve a small problem. How? I asked. A medical trust. Irrevocable, fully managed. Clean, legal, untouchable. And in return, he didn't rush. We assume legal guardianship. Guardianship. A word that sounds temporary. It isn't. And after treatment, he continued, we proceed with adoption. I stared at him, not surprised, just confirming what I already knew. You're asking me to give up my daughter. He shook his head. No. We're asking you to let her live. Silence. Heavy. Deliberate. His wife finally spoke. We've reviewed her case. Extensively. There it was. The part they weren't supposed to say. How? I asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. We have access. Of course they did. In America. Privacy exists until money decides otherwise. You knew before I did. Neither of them denied it, because they didn't have to. That doesn't change what we're offering. No, it didn't. It just changed what it meant. I opened the folder. Documents, numbers, language designed to remove anything human. And then, the clause. No contact. Not limited. Not conditional. Absolute. Ever? I asked. Daniel nodded. It's cleaner that way. Cleaner. Like we were discussing a transaction. And if I say no? He paused. Just long enough. No one else is coming. There it was. Not pressure. Not a threat. Just the truth. I closed the folder. Slowly. Because the moment I accepted this, there would be no version of it that didn't break something. I need time, I said. Daniel nodded. Of course. There, as I stood, he added one more thing. The trial closes in 11 days. 11. Not months. Not weeks. Days. And just like that, it stopped being a decision. It became a countdown. When I stepped outside, the air felt colder. Not because of the weather, because for the first time, I understood something I had spent my life avoiding. Some choices don't ask what you want. They ask what you're willing to lose. And this time, the answer was already waiting for me. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. Time stopped moving the way it used to. It didn't flow anymore. It pressed. Every hour, a wait, every minute, a reminder. 11 days becomes 10. 10 becomes 9. And suddenly, you're not counting time anymore. You're running out of it. I sat in the hospital hallway. Same chair, same light. Nothing changed, except everything. Through the glass, Emily was asleep. Her hand curled around the edge of the blanket, like she was holding on to something even in her dreams. I used to think my job was to protect her, keep her safe, make sure nothing touched her that I couldn't fix. I was wrong. Some things don't ask permission. They don't wait for you to be ready. They just arrive and take. The next morning, I went back to the Reynolds office. Same room, same table, Same folder. Nothing had changed. Except me. Daniel didn't ask if I had made a decision. He already knew. People like him always do. I sat down, opened the folder, and read the clause again. No contact. Not a condition. A wall. I've signed worse things in my life. Medical waivers. Risk disclosures. Documents that said people might die. But this was the first time I signed something that guaranteed someone would live without me. Before we proceed, I said, there's something I need to confirm. Daniel nodded. The trust, I continued. It goes directly to the hospital. Yes? I never access it. Correct. Not now. Not later. Not ever. Had he held my gaze? Not ever. I nodded. That mattered. Not to them. To me. Because if I was going to do this, it couldn't be for money. Not even $1. Otherwise, she would be right to hate me. Daniel slid the pen toward me. Heavy. Final. Once you've seen it, he said, the trust activates immediately. Immediate. Waiting. No delay. Time, for once, would be on her side. I picked up the pen, and for a moment, just one, I thought about explaining, telling her the truth, letting her understand. But understanding creates attachment, and attachment makes leaving impossible. If she believed I loved her, she would wait. She would look for me. She would try to come back. And I couldn't let that happen. So I made a decision, not as a father, but as a man who understood what time costs. I signed William Carter. And just like that, she had a future. Later that night, I sat alone in the apartment. I had already started packing. There are things you prepare for before they happen. This was one of them. I took out a piece of paper, not legal, not structured, just blank. And I started writing. Not to explain, not to justify. Just to say the things I wouldn't be allowed to say. Emily, by the time you read this, if you ever do, you will probably hate me. And that's okay, because hate means you stayed. It means you lived long enough to feel something about me. Folded the paper, placed it in an envelope, and then I didn't send it because some truths, if they arrive too early, they change the decision. And this decision to stay final. The next morning, I stood outside her room, hand on the door, same as before, same hesitation. But this time, there was no version of this where I walked in. So I turned around and I left. Because if she hated me, she wouldn't come looking. If she didn't come looking, she would stay where she needed to be. Alive. 16 years is a long time to hold on to a single idea, long enough for it to settle, to harden, to stop asking questions. For Emily, that idea was simple. Her father chose money and left. She built her life around that belief, not because it was easy, but because it was clear. And clear things are easier to live with, even when they're wrong. She didn't come back looking for answers. Not at first. People don't return to places that hurt them. They move forward. They build distance. They tell themselves it's over. Until something small, quiet, refuses to let go. For her, it started with a file, not labeled, not highlighted, just there, buried among documents no one reads twice. She almost ignored it. Almost. But something about it, something small, felt unfinished. So she opened it. And that was the moment. Everything she believed started to break. The first thing she saw was a number. $3 million. Not received or transferred. Allocated. Structured. Locked. A medical trust. Her name on it. Every payment going directly to the hospital. Not to him. Never to him. She kept reading. Dates. Signatures. Authorizations. Every procedure. Every treatment. Every extension of her life. Approved by him. William Carter. The man she believed had walked away. Her hands started to shake. Not from confusion, from recognition. Because deep down, some part of her had always known there was something that didn't fit. But it was easier not to look. Easier to stay angry. Anger doesn't ask questions. It just stays. She found the letter later. Folded. Unsent me. Hidden where no one was supposed to look. Her name on the front. Emily. She opened it slowly. Carefully. Like it might change if she moved too fast. And then she read, "If you're reading this, it means I did what I hoped. You lived. And if you lived long enough to hate me, then I made the right choice. I never needed you to understand. I only needed you to survive." She stopped reading because suddenly breathing felt different, heavier, like every year she had spent hating him had weight. And now she was carrying all of it at once. She didn't wait, didn't think, didn't hesitate. She back to a place she swore she would never return to. The nursing home was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't expect anything to change. She asked for him, gave his name, waited. And then they led her down a hallway that felt longer than it should. When she reached the door, she stopped. 'Cause suddenly, she didn't know what to say. 16 years of silence. Does that? It removes the language. She opened the door. Slowly, he was there, smaller than she remembered, older, weaker, but still to him. He looked up, and for a moment, just one, something passed between them. Recognition, not surprise, not shock, just understanding. "You're alive," he said. His voice was quieter now, but steady. She nodded. Suddenly, every word she had prepared, every accusation, every question disappeared because none of them fit anymore. "I know," she said. Her voice broke on the second word. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. He nodded, like that was enough, because to him, it always had been. "You lived," he said. "That's all I needed." And just like that, there was nothing left to fix. Because some things once they're understood, can't be undone. Only correct. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. They end with understanding. And sometimes that understanding comes too late. We spend so much of our lives trying to be understood that we forget. Some people were never trying to explain themselves. They were just trying to protect us in ways we weren't ready to see. So, here's the question. The one that stays after everything else is gone. If you were in his place, would you have done the same thing? Would you let your child hate you if it meant they got to live? Or would you choose to stay and risk losing them anyway? Because the truth is, some choices don't give you a right answer. They only show you what kind of person you were willing to become. And sometimes, love doesn't look like staying. Sometimes, it looks like leaving for being forgiven.